The year is 2014. Some of you watching this video right now may have only been in middle school at this time. Maybe some of you were already in high school, or maybe some of you were still in elementary school. It doesn't matter where you were at this point in your life, because no matter who you were, you probably heard of this new scary game, and it was called Five Nights at Freddy's. At the time, I was only in 5th grade. I was still into Mario. I loved Mario. I played a lot of the games. I had a Super Nintendo, I had a Game Boy Advance, and a DS, even a DSi. I had quite a bit, but I remember a lot of kids in my class at the time, they would be talking about, you know, this brand new game, and this YouTuber called Markiplier, and it sounded interesting from the sounds of it. So one day I decided to look it up on YouTube, and just like many others, I became hooked on the game. But why did I become hooked on it? And why am I still into it to this day? Well, I hope to answer that in this video the best way I can. This video may not be too good because this is my first time making a video like this, but I hope to explain why Five Nights at Freddy's is a classic. Salutations, my beautiful children, and welcome to my first essay video. Isn't that wacky? It's probably not gonna be all too great because I've never made one of these before, but I'm gonna try my best. Let's see how it goes. To get started, we should take a look at what made the first game special in the first place. I think if I had anything to say about it, it was simple. Anyone could understand it. It wasn't a complicated game. You just sat around in your office, turning on lights, shutting your doors, and looking at your camera to make sure you don't fucking die. There was also a hidden mystery lurking in the background of the gameplay, so there was lore in there. I think the lore compared to now, you know, it was pretty straightforward back then, but it was a very big deal because not many, I don't want to say no games had lore, but I think this was definitely a game that had some lore hidden, quote-unquote, hidden in the game, and everyone wanted to find out what the hell was going on. Like, what was the story here? Why were there robots coming to kill you? And stuff like that. And I remember really being into that stuff, but we'll touch on the lore later on in the video. First, I think we should talk about the game overall. Now, you know, if you were like me back in the day, you probably never played the game, at least not officially. I played the game on Scratch.com. It was the game, but it was kind of dumbed down and it was really easy. Like, I remember I beat the game in like, I think I beat it in like one period. I was just in class, all my friends were around me, we were having free time, and I literally beat the game. I even recorded it too, and I posted it on my old YouTube channel, but sadly that YouTube channel is gone now. But I digress. About 6 months ago, I actually bought the game on Steam, and wow, I was missing out. I had a fun time playing it. I did. The game, you know, the game may have been kind of basic, but I think that's what makes it good. It's not like an overcomplicated mess. It's simple, straight to the point, and you know, anybody can pick up the game and play it. It had a sort of arcadey feel to it, and I think the second and third game carried that on pretty good, but I think I'll talk about those games in another video. You, as the player, are stuck in this security office. You might feel safe, you know, you have doors, you have lights, but there's one problem. The power can go out. So that meant you had to strategize when to use your lights, when to shut your doors, and when to use your camera. And if you got really good at the game, you know, you didn't even really have to look at the camera. You could just turn on the light every now and then, make sure Bonnie or Chica aren't at the door, and then that's it. But for new players, and even in the later nights in the game, you have to strategize what you do, or else you're dead. You're dead, man. You're dead. Like I said before, the game has a very arcadey feel, and I like that. I keep saying it's straight to the point and shit, but it really is, and that's why I enjoy the game. I had a lot of fun playing it, and I think the game is even more fun if you like invite friends over and you all take turns on the computer and trying to see like who can get past the night, who's gonna get jump scared. Ooh, who's gonna get jump scared? It's really fun, and that's something that some of the newer games, you know, they don't really have that same feel. And it's a shame. And speaking of jump scares, one of the defining characteristics of Five Nights at Freddy's in general is the jump scares. And while, yeah, you know, jump scares, they're kind of cheap. They're a cheap way to scare you. I think they work in Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, as for the jump scares themselves, they're not bad. I mean, the jump scares in later games are definitely a little better, but for what it's worth, they're okay. I mean, back then, if you didn't see the jump scares at all and you saw them for the first time, they'd scare the shit out of you. I know I was one of those people who watched frickin' Markiplier play the game on YouTube, and I would skip around the video because I didn't want to get jump scared. I was terrified. I did not want to watch the whole video through because I didn't want to get jump scared. That's how impactful they were. I'm probably like little kids. I mean, I think if you were an adult and you saw them, it probably wouldn't do too much for you. But for kids like me, it fucking scared my socks off. Talking about the jump scares, that also begs the question: why did the animatronics come after you? Did they smell the blood, or were they just one-sided? You know, ooh, evil animatronics. Well, there's an answer for that. And I mean, the answer would be given in more detail like about 6 years later after the first game came out, but, you know, back then it was a very simple answer. And that can be answered in the lore. Lore and Five Nights at Freddy's, you know, they go hand in hand. You can't have a Five Nights at Freddy's game without sprinkling a little bit of that lore in there. And everyone was trying to figure out what the hell the lore was. And a lot of people, myself included, gravitated towards YouTube channels such as Game Theory because he was making theories about the games, and he was and still kind of is the go-to place for Five Nights at Freddy's lore. I personally don't really watch his Five Nights at Freddy's stuff anymore because, if you ask me, the lore now is kinda bleh. I don't like it too much. But back then, you know, he was the go-to place. Now the lore, when compared to now, it's not really too complicated. It can be summed up pretty easily. But back then, it was a really big deal. People didn't know what the hell was going on. They were trying to figure out, like, more. They wanted more of that juicy meat that Scott Cawthon was cooking up. It could basically be summed up by: random guy comes to the restaurant and just kills a few kids and puts them into the animatronic suits, which basically they haunt the suits, and they want to kill you. And that was the lore. And then there was the Bite of 87, which in the first game no one knew what the hell that was all about. All we knew was that an incident happened in 1987 with an animatronic, and it murdered someone and took their frontal lobe. And that was the lore. That was the lore in the first game, which, while simple, still drives home the fear factor, and that's something that, you know, recent Five Nights at Freddy's games don't really have, and that's fear. And I just don't really like the lore these days. It's way too bloated. Back then, it was only a few games, and the lore connected easily. Now, you got time-traveling ball pits, robots designed to look like fucking humans, you got souls being used as a remnant and shit to bring things to life. It's all over the place. I miss when it was just a guy came in, murdered some kids, and that was it. like I said, the lore nowadays is just way too bloated. And I don't like that. I miss when it was more simple. So why is Five Nights at Freddy's a classic? It's because, while the game is very basic, it still provided something for people who are interested in it. You got the arcadey gameplay, you know, the nights get progressively harder the more you play, which is actually really good. I like that. You got the lore for all of the fans who wanted to get invested in it and find out what was going on. And you had the fact that you didn't always know when you were going to get jump scared. You could get jump scared at any time and you weren't expecting it. The mechanics of the game would even inspire a lot of people to make fan games, their own Five Nights at Freddy's spin-off games, like Five Nights at Candy's, One Night at Flumpty's, Five Nights at Wario's, like all like classic games that stemmed from the first Five Nights at Freddy's game, even the second game. And to top it all off, after you beat the 5 nights and the 6th night, you unlock the custom night, which basically gives you the opportunity to mess around with the animatronics and set their difficulties to whatever the hell you want. I have yet to beat 420 mode. Like, it's pretty hard, and despite that, I love it. I love it to death. And that's another thing. The first game has replay value. Once you beat the game, it's not like, oh, I'm done with the game. You can go back to it in the custom night or just restart the whole game entirely and try to beat the 5 nights again. And if there's anything more that I can say about this game, thank you, Scott Cawthon. Thank you for making this franchise. Even if, you know, these days it's a little bloated and I don't care all that much for it anymore, the original game and the original trilogy will always have a place in my heart. And these games really did shape me into the person that I am today. And thank you for watching this video. This is my first essay video. It's probably not going to be all that great, you know, but that doesn't matter. I just wanted to make it because I've been thinking about making a video like this for about a month now, and I'm glad I finally did it. I expect there to be some parts in this video that kind of stink and maybe lackluster, but that's fine. But if you want to see a part 2 where I talk about the second game, then feel free to comment in this video's comment section, or you can go into the community tab and tell me that what you want me to do next. Anyway, that's it. See ya.